that same district. Of course, I'm open to different opinions. Yes, if you want to disagree with me, feel free, but that's where I was at with that. Item B on page 13, institutional uses, again, same as before. Same thing with group child care homes, adult foster care homes. We will also add an item G to deal with the commercial daycares, as we've already talked about. Also in section 8.04, you'll see that all of the setback language has been changed again. The front yard setback has been again reduced to 20 feet for the same reasons as it was in the previous district. In R2, same thing with lot coverage, 35% instead of 30%, because there have been some times where someone wants to build a simple garage or something very small, and they can't, or they're very limited in what they can do because of that requirement. And the last section on page 14 is your manufactured home park district. So this is almost, and most of this stuff is governed by the state and the Mobile Home Commission. So again, we've proposed only some modest modifications to section 9.01, really not anything else. And then you'll see here, underneath that, chapter 17, special land uses, there's just a couple items that we're going to rename. We're not going to delete everything. But again, for the sake of consistency with our definition, and then the word that we use in the zoning district, and then the specific regulations later on, making sure that we have the same language throughout the ordinance.
Do you want to add in there commercial daycare or not? Would that be appropriate?
Yes.
And also under definitions if we don't have it?
We already have a definition for that.
We're okay?
Yep. So what we'll do moving forward from here, at the next meeting we will we'll clean this up. We'll have it in a more understandable and easy to read format for you so you can see what's changed, and we'll make these changes that we've talked about tonight. And then we can get into a little more detail on any of the other things. I guess the last thing I wanted to ask you is if in your review, Bruce or other commissioners of this district, is there anything that you've come across that you felt was unusual, or the use that was not permitted that should have been, or that was permitted that shouldn't have been?
No, and part of it has to do, I mean, obviously, the zoning ordinances have been around for a long time, so a lot of this has been really kind of brought up.
Mm-hmm.
So the updates are the state primarily, and then any questions that you run into as a zoning person. Dave, you've been around anything odd that you see, or?
It's all odd. No, it's all right.
I think it looks pretty clean to me. I mean, I feel pretty comfortable with it. I mean, there's a lot there, obviously, to update and all of those kinds of things, but a lot of it has to do with just state wording that we have to change.
We got to change as everything else does.
Right, exactly. And even the definitions are just updating as far as that goes.
Yeah, and in some cases the definition is it's not, we're just adding them because there's nothing there previously. There's not a state mandated definition for a golf course, for example, but there's nothing in there now, so I prefer to have one in our ordinance and have all of our terminology defined properly.
Tony brought up a good point, though. Where does the setbacks start and end?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we could define that somehow, make it more noticeable in the zoning ordinance,
mm-hmm.
and it's probably under definitions anyway right now.
It is. So the way it's defined now is the setback. You have to flip around a lot because the setback is defined as, that might reference the definition for yard or something, but basically it says it's the distance between the front lot line and the nearest point of the building, if there's a building on the lot. So then if you want to know what your front lot line is, because it's believe it or not, it's not always clearly evident what the what the front lot line is.
Right.
There's a definition for a front lot line, which says that that's the lot line adjacent to a street. If you're on a corner lot, then it's the shorter of those two lines. So if one dimension is 80 feet and the other dimension is 100 feet on a corner, then the 80-foot dimension is your front, and that's how we measure the setbacks from that. And there are some other rules that come into play. We can get into all this when we do the definition, and we'll explain all this, because it's actually, I think Sue and I probably spend more time explaining and talking about fussy stuff like lot lines with the applicant,
Yeah.
more so or equally as much as the bigger picture items like what is permitted in what district and where.
I think
It comes up a
I
lot.
get those questions more too. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, and if we could even put them in the boxes here somehow. it
Yeah, I
might- Or just a.
Yeah, a footnote or something.
Something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Each
Draw a
property,
sketch.
each property is different. I mean, I live in a corner lot and one, the front has a sidewalk and the side doesn't have a sidewalk, so it's like, which,
Yeah.
both are defined to be different.
Yep.
Right.
Yep, and sometimes the building is built so that the front of the house faces what in zoning is the side. So they'll say my front yard, but when I look at it on a map, it's their side yard. So again, that's just part of the job, I guess, but it can get confusing, and it's just something that as planners, we have to be careful of, and making sure that we're measuring things
Consistent.
correctly and consistently. And, you'll see sometimes in our staff reports, even for the commercial projects, if it's on a corner, and we kind of came into this a little bit with Benton Baker, not too much because it's a big site and the buildings are all set way back, but it could have been a very difficult conversation to figure out in great detail where everything could be in relation to what is your front, or what is your side, what is your rear, what setbacks all apply to all of that stuff, because that site has streets on three sides of it. So it has three fronts. And then what's the side, what's the rear? And so we got to figure all that out sometimes. In that case, it was fine, but sometimes it can be more difficult than.
Yeah, I think, I don't even know if you, I don't think it's possible to generalize in this area, or this thing. It's too complex, I think.
Yeah.
But it could be referenced by saying back to the definitions with some drawings and things like that.
Or referencing.
You know, just having a
Mhm.
footnote, like you said, having a footnote, maybe
Yep.
referring it back to
Sure.
the definition or something where they can, I don't know,
That's a good idea.
something, try it, see what it looks
Tell
like.
them where.
Yeah, and if it doesn't look good, then, do something else.
Yeah, the other thing that we can do here that might help people visualize this is we can also add like an image or diagram, a graphic that kind of shows a plan view looking straight down that shows street, sidewalk, front yard, what your building envelope is.
Yeah.
And kind of show a typical layout, and you can even show a corner lot too, and talk about, kind of point out some of those things. And when someone looks at one district, they can say, oh,
Right.
this is what I can do. So we'd be happy to do that if that's.
Yeah, and that may work, or you can even put all various districts on one or two pages at the start of it or
Mhm.
something. That may work too. Whatever would make some sense, I think. Anything we can do to clarify that portion of it, I think would help. And it's the same situation with the 35-footer stories. I mean, it's the clarification that would make things, I think, a little bit easier for somebody.
Or reference where they could find that information.
Exactly, yes, either way, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
we will do that.
Commissioners, is there any other questions on these?
I have one about a potential typo in chapter 5, section 5.02. References the R1 district, should that be FR?
Yes. Thank you. I wonder how long that's been there. SR. Yep, that is, we will definitely make that change. Thank you. for the contact.
That's all.
Okay.
Andy's going to clean all of this up so that we'll have a clean copy. Obviously, we don't have to do any voting or doing anything with this, and I would recommend that, frankly. And then when we do take the vote, we still have to have a open session.
Public hearing?
Public hearing.
Yes. So I think what we'll do is I'll bring this back next month for your review. If everything's good and graphics and explanations look fine, then we can schedule a public hearing for the October meeting, and then you can recommend it to council at that time. In the meantime, we'll start moving forward with the commercial districts.
Right.
That's
That was gonna be my suggestion, is
Yeah,
maybe
so-
have that either at the October meeting, the initial one.
Mm-hmm.
That might be the best time to do it.
Or we can just keep them.
Although this is pretty clean, so it could
Yeah.
even be, depending on your schedule. I'll leave it up to you.
Okay.
Okay? Because commercial probably won't change much either, will it?
No, there's, the biggest issue we have in the commercial districts are some of the standards for lot coverage are difficult, if not almost impossible to work with. So we'll have to think a lot about how we want to handle that. As far as the uses and things like that go, I think you're right. I think it'll be pretty straightforward, yeah. It'll mostly be, again, some of this fussy stuff about lot coverage and lot lines and setbacks.
Because and I'd like to have Mike here for that, for sure, because I think he's got a real sense of that with what he did over there at Benton. So I just think that might be really appropriate. I'd like to have him here for that, so.
Sounds good.
That kind of makes some sense. Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions at all? Staff, Sue?
I have nothing further to report.
Commissioners, you each get a whack at it. Kelly?
Good.
Anything to add? Good? Dave?
I'm good.
Tom?
Good.
Yeah? Tom? Good. And I'm good too. I would urge a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
In support? Support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned.